Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of air safety and your own personal safety, we ask that you keep a close watch on your carry-ons and personal items.
Welcome to the AeroExploration Podcast, where aviation's past, present, and future meet. We explore the stories that build aviation history, take you inside the industry today, and uncover the career paths and innovations keeping the industry in motion. We go behind the scenes, into the cockpit, and onto the ramp, meeting the people and discovering the places that define aviation. If it's part of the flying world, you'll find it here. This is AeroExploration.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AeroExploration Podcast. My name is Jim, and I'm your host. It has been a couple of weeks since I've put out an episode. It turns out I got the COVID, and it put me out of commission for a little bit. So apologies for not having an episode out the last couple of weeks, but got a good one for you today as we have another Fly the Transition story. As a time-saving measure for this episode, and based on the fact that I've been a little under the weather and not able to do a whole heck of a lot in aviation, we're going to just jump right into my interview with our guest for this episode, who is Matt Peschong. He is a regional airline pilot currently, but he is a former North Dakota state trooper. From flight simulators to air shows, Matt had his eyes on aviation since his youth. He found the airlines to be particularly intriguing, but it was also a bit of a mystery. He actually started down the aviation path and was a certificated pilot by age 17. But when it came time for him to pick his ultimate career, it was between law enforcement and aviation. As this episode would suggest, ultimately Matt goes down the route of getting into aviation as a career, and he's going to tell you all about that story, some of the fortunate networking opportunities he was able to have as he worked through that process and got his ratings and began instructing, and he's going to tell you all about that and what it's like for him now working at a regional airlines. So without further ado, let's welcome Matt to the AeroExploration Podcast. Welcome, Matt Peschong, to the podcast. This has been kind of a long time coming. I appreciate you being patient with me, and I'm excited to tell your story. So,
Absolutely. Yes, it has been kind of a hit and miss thing here, but I'm glad it finally worked out here.
yes, as am I. So, let's jump right into your story. And how were you first exposed to aviation?
You bet. Well, it started out honestly with Microsoft Flight Simulator way back in the day. We're talking like Microsoft DOS days, like the
There you go.
old school, yeah, and old school
mixed
joystick.
field.
Yeah. My dad had it in Meigs Field, and O'Hare was about the only two airports you could really find. Um,
Right.
my dad had it, and I started playing it all the time, and that's what kind of initially kind of sucked me into it. It's really cool. I started, air shows, Fargo Air Show in specifics. And it was funny, I caught myself at those air shows, not so much watching the air show, but really interested in the airliners coming in. And that's really
Okay.
what really started to drive me. I love the jets. I love the airline, the airports, the whole picture. So,
What was it about the airlines that caught your attention at that age?
I think it was just the whole picture. Like it was just it was an event to go to the airport and get on an airliner and go fly somewhere, and the size of the jets, and just the airport, and how everything was fitting together, how the ticket agents worked with the gate agents, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And it was just all intriguing to me, and it's a little bit mysterious when you're not part of it, because there's
Sure.
so much unknown. So that kind of drew me to it a little bit too, I think.
Okay. So as you're growing up, is that a career track you thought you would go down, or did you go a different direction?
It originally was. So then
Okay.
I graduated from Moorhead Senior High School. And at the time, we had an aviation as a class you could take. And I'd been trying to be part of the airports as much as possible. as much as my parents could afford to have me fly. And some time at the Moorhead Airport in a 150 and stuff like that. Well, I went through the ground school, got it done, passed my written, and the EAA provided, I think, if I remember correctly, I think we got 5 flight hours as part of a scholarship if you got
Okay.
through it. So that's really what opened the door for me, and that's when I went to Vic's Aircraft. And at age 16, I soloed, and age 17, I got my private pilot's license.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
So you're
it was.
taking the steps early on.
I got through that, and that was kind of my plan. Like I was, I toured UND, and I was going to go to UND, and uh, life's about opportunities, and
Hmm.
picking the right ones sometimes. And at that time, it was really between law enforcement and aviation. I kind of had a draw towards law enforcement as well. So the last minute, I made the decision to go. I went to Alec Tech for law enforcement. It's where I kind of started out. And this whole
Okay.
time, I'd been working construction. So I had been paying my way, in the summers, pouring concrete, framing, you name it, in the construction field, because that became pretty important later on as part of my aviation journey as well, to be honest. But went to school for law enforcement, didn't graduate, didn't finish. And the reason being is I kind of worked my way up. I became a concrete foreman, project
Okay.
manager. Those opportunities were there. They made money right away. Got married, had a kid, and that kind of put a change in your path as far as is where your money's going and what you're able to do.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
So
so
you
I
continue down the path of construction.
did. I did. So I continued to worked my way up. I was a safety director for a larger construction company, and still kind of felt a hole in my career life. And at this point, I kind of the Highway Patrol was hiring, and I kind of made the decision that retirement wasn't where I wanted it to be. The Highway Patrol had a great pension, and I thought, this is something I want to do in life. Went to the got hired by the North Dakota Highway Patrol and went to the Highway Patrol Academy. I think I was 27 when I did that. It was
Okay.
2010 is when I attended the academy.
So with law enforcement specifically, was there something that continued to pull at you that got you from construction into that? I mean, besides the pension, was there like a calling within the profession or?
Yeah, a little bit. I and it's a weird draw, with I fly with a lot of guys who are former cops too, so I don't know what the correlation is there. I think there's a lot of that in the industry right now. I'm not sure why, but I think part of it for me at the time with law enforcement was kind of multifaceted. It wasn't just the pay and the benefits and all that. It was the opportunity to be a part of the community, and serve the community. Back in the day in high school, I kind of wanted to do the military route. Didn't quite work out for me. So I felt like this was kind of a sublet to that, and gave me the
Okay.
opportunity to be part of something, a little bit bigger. And the Highway Patrol is a outstanding organization, great place to work, marvelous benefits, and really a great group of people. So I was very fortunate to get in there, and work with them. And the opportunities they provided were wonderful. I had a lot of opportunities, and as a state trooper in the Highway Patrol.
So from the law enforcement perspective, I know that maybe the average listener wouldn't understand, but I mean, you've got your police departments, you've got sheriff's offices, and then you've got state troopers in most states. So from your perspective, what is the big difference between being a trooper to those other avenues of law enforcement that people might?
Yeah, the state trooper guys are the smoky hats that we mainly focus on the highways, was as our primary focus. we're traffic focused as well. So a lot of the stuff, the crimes we investigate, the cases we work are all traffic related. In other roles, other major crimes or major things that are happening, we're more of a backup role, helping other
Okay.
departments in those cases. Our focus, our jurisdiction is statewide, so we can make traffic stops anywhere in the state. But my big thing when I was a state trooper was DUI enforcement. Loved it. It was as I worked more and more crashes, I saw just the relationship with how drinking and
Yeah.
driving affected people, and that was really kind of hit home with me as far as what I primarily like to focus in on. I also had the chance to be a canine officer. Got to do that for a
Oh,
while.
nice.
Was on the emergency response team, and then it had some other opportunities as well as far as instructing goes and stuff like that. So Highway Patrol really did open a lot of doors, for me career wise and to advance. Eventually promoted to a sergeant out in Minot, but that's a little later on in the career, I guess. And so, but yeah, it was a great job. It really was. I spent 15 years as a state trooper, took an early retirement, with the aviation coming into my career path, and don't regret a day of it. It was a great place to work.
So you've mentioned a lot of pros with the trooper side of things. Were there any cons of that kind of work?
There was there's definitely cons to law enforcement. The landscape changed over the years, over the 15 years I did it. Some good, some bad. It wasn't all bad, but there was definitely times. We deal with some good things. I got to spend a lot of time in the schools. Um, you know, Talking to kids and so on and so forth. Those were all great things. Being part of the community. Some of the other stuff, dealing with some of the bad crashes,
Yeah.
some of the crimes that we dealt with were tough. They add up over time. So it definitely took a toll on me, family life. It definitely took a toll. So there is the backside of it as well. The law enforcement, kind of more the unspoken part of it, that plays a part too.
Yeah, for sure. So as you talk about that you took an early retirement from law enforcement after the 15 years, what does that mean for you? Is it because you've got a pathway into aviation, or was there something else that came up that pushed you in a different direction?
Yeah. So what happened? It was probably around that COVID time, 2019-ish. I Law enforcement. I'd been doing it for a while now, and I still was drawn to aviation. I kind of always had been. It was a lack of opportunities. It was probably more so why I hadn't really pursued anything in it. I had a friend. I still stay in contact. He's at Southwest Airlines now. He was an FO with a regional, before this time, and he had kind of a rough go. I mean, very successful, but had kind of a rough go. Just times were different back then in aviation. It was kind of cutthroat, and wages weren't great. They were being worked a lot, so it wasn't real terribly appealing. I mean, the thought of being paid to fly was great, but hardly making a living off of it was kind of another story with a family and stuff. So
Okay.
as that landscape changed, it kind of reinvigorated my interest in becoming a pilot. It was like, well, at that time I think SkyWest was paying 40 grand a year for FOs, and I thought, I can make a living at that. It's going to be tight, but we can do it for a while. And I thought, yeah, I want to start looking at this again. So first thing I did was I went and bought an old Piper Cherokee, kind of a hangar queen from a guy in Park River, North
Nice.
Dakota, by where I was living, and
Okay.
that kind of kicked it off. And in the midst of this, I had started a small construction company, not because I ever wanted to go back into construction. That was not the point. When I left for the Highway Patrol, I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with construction. But there was a real need for concrete contractors up in my area. And so I kind of got, in a way, inadvertently pulled into it. I was doing a home remodel project, and people started asking if I'd do sidewalks, patios, that kind of stuff for them, and it just kind of grew on me. And so I was doing the highway patrol, and then on my days off, I had a small crew, and we doing around did concrete projects. So I kind of had that going on the side. And then with with my wife's support, I started flying again, and threw
Okay.
another iron in the fire. Um,
Yeah,
so
why
yeah,
not?
yeah, why not? Why not? Um, yeah, she still kind of gives me a hard time about that because I was non-existent as far as home went for about 3 or 4 years here. But I started flying, and then COVID hit, and it kind of took the wind out of my sails. Additionally, the engine went bad on the aircraft I bought. So they
Not
talk
great.
about no, they talk about if you go into aviation, you really have to have the passion to fly. If you're going in it for the money or anything else, it could be a terribly, terribly unfortunate path for you if these kind of things come up. I was in it for the passion of flying. I loved to fly. I loved aviation. And so, another part that I found later on and throughout my time is it's such a small community, and
Yeah.
taking the time to meet people and get to know people, and networking in aviation is so important. And it saved me in this regard. And I became a good friend of mine. His name's Andy Tybert. Some people in the Midwest probably know his name. He's a mechanic that was up in a crop sprayer in Grafton, North Dakota. He kind of swooped in and saved me with a bad engine, and he did it in a unique way. And he came to me and said, you know, don't give up on this. Don't sell the airplane. We'll get it fixed. Go find a used engine from somewhere, and you're going to help me do this. And I learned more about aviation mechanics and why AMPs get paid what they get paid to do, because it is detail-oriented work, and I can really appreciate it. I learned a
Yeah.
lot in that process, and found a used engine in Wentworth down in the cities and picked it up, and off to work we went, and he helped me. We went through that entire airplane. It was a new airplane when it left the hangar, and then off to find a flight school at that point.
Very cool. So are you working in your ratings at this point in time too? Or is it, I mean, you mentioned you had gotten your private pilot certificate when you were, 17? And then from there, I mean, at what point are you working on ratings, or is it kind of on pause?
It was kind of on pause, so I knew I had to get time. In time, whether you're getting it as a private pilot or a commercial, it's time is time. So I set up kind of a route, and I just flew it, and it was constant. I remember I'd take off at Park River, I'd fly to Devil's Lake, and I'd fly Devil's Lake to Grafton, and then Grafton up to Cavalier, and then back to Park River. And I'd sometimes make that loop 2 or 3 times a day, just because it was cross
Jeez.
country, and
Yeah.
just burning aviation fuel is what I was doing. But I was loving it. It was a blast. And my kids had come with me. My kids are all interested in aviation, so it was a great opportunity for them to come up and ride along and do some flying as well. So really a great time. But I did come to a point where I had to find a flight school and how I was going to do this and what was going to work for me. And I knew with my time and my other career, it had to be something accelerated. I had to bite the bullet and bear down and just work through these and do a lot of self study before I went. And um, I went to Lakes Area Aviation, just north of the cities there, and in Little Falls, Minnesota. And they
Okay.
did a great job for me. With what I needed. And I would call Jake, the owner, up and say, "Hey, my time is limited. I got, a week and a half here. I'd like to knock out the instrument." He'd dedicate an instructor for me, and I went and got a hotel down there. I flew down to my plane, and we knocked it out. And on the last day, he'd have a check ride for me, and off we went. So I was fortunate to find him because he really did help me in that regard. get through those ratings. And I felt like when I left, I had the knowledge to be safe in those categories as well as an instrument, commercial, so on and so forth. He really made sure I knew my stuff before I went in for my check rides, and he would kind of guide me in what needed to be studied ahead of time. So I came prepared, and it really was a good experience.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question with these accelerated programs, depending on which one it is, obviously. I mean, how much extra work are you doing in advance of that to be prepared when you get there? Because I would assume that you don't just show up day one and a week and a half, poof, with no other studying or experience, you're ready to go.
That's exactly correct. And I think that's a big part of why people don't succeed in them. It is 90% your own, um, ambitions to go ahead and study and come in there as ready as you can come. Go through find a good ground school to get into or online ground school and really go through it. Don't shepherd air it before you go. I mean, obviously you might want to use that before you
Yeah.
take it written. That's each to their own, but understanding the principles ahead of time with what you're doing is really important. Jake has a Redbird simulator too, so when I wasn't flying or couldn't fly, I was able to go in there and work on approaches and stuff with that. And even after I got done with my instrument, I'd still go in there and use it. And just using all of those resources when they're available, I think is critical. I don't think there was a time where I wasn't listening to a podcast, reading a book, or listening to a book about aviation during this time. It was, any information I could get.
So I know you did your instrument this way. Did you do commercial and instructing ratings as well through like accelerator programs, or how did that
I did
work?
them all through. I did them all through Jake. The only ones I didn't do was I didn't do the MEI with Jake, and at the
Okay.
time he had some older Apaches, and they were kind of going through a transition at the time with some of the aircraft. They're all up and good now, but they were just availability was a little less. So I kind of actually just threw that to the wayside for a little bit. I'll get
Okay.
into that a little bit later on, but I did my CFI, my CFII. Jake, he was he had a 91 gig flying a Kodiak for a local owner, and occasionally let me tag along with that too, and got me some experience, in the turbine environment and some of that. So it really all around was just a great place for me. It was a great opportunity. So he did all of my training up through that. He really has a great CFI program. CFI programs are tough. It's kind of a whole separate training from your instrument commercial
Yeah.
stuff, and he kind of honed in on that and does a really good job. I think he sends quite a few instructors from all over the country come to him and go through there. So he's really done a good job with that.
So as you're making this transition, I mean, you're still working as a trooper. It sounds like you're doing construction work, and how long does this take you to get through all of your different ratings to a point where you're starting to really build hours and working towards making this dream a reality?
It took about 2 years roughly to get through the double I. And that's, from coming in as a private pilot and getting out. And that's when I kind of first picked up my first gig. I did a little bit of instructing for Jake here and there with some remote clients he had. But the first real instructing job that I took on was with Flight in Grand Forks, or GFK Wings
Okay.
is what they refer to themselves as. But that's where I really took my first gig. And yeah, at this time, I'm still just a trooper. I haven't been promoted yet. I shouldn't say just a trooper, but I was still working as a state trooper in the
Yeah,
in the
I know what you
Northeast
mean.
region. Yeah, and and I was still doing the construction, and now I had picked up a flight instructing gig. So I was off to the races, and I can't remember how many hours I had at this time, but I think I was about half, or not even. I think I was about halfway to 1,000. It was probably around 500, 600 hours at the time.
Okay. Gotcha.
I started instructing in mainly, um, Piper Archers, Cessna 172s, was kind of where I started. I knew my time was limited, so I used any free time I had to flight instruct, whether that was before a shift, after a shift. I would work it out with my shifts where I'd start in Grand Forks, and I would instruct beforehand or afterwards or whatever the case was. So I was tried to get into a plane at least every day if possible.
All right. So you're working, you are up through these ratings, you're doing basically 3 different jobs here. How do you juggle all of that?
It was challenging. Fortunately, I have a very understanding wife and and family. They If it wouldn't have been for her, it would have been really difficult. I don't know. It would have been challenging. She kept the home front going while I was off on this adventure. We both had the same end goal in mind, which was for me to become to get out of law enforcement and become professional in the aviation industry, and it was all part of that plan. So it at times, um, and really towards the end, the burnout did start to set in. You
I'll
kind of
bet.
question, what am I doing here? At this time now, I'm 40 years old. Am I doing the right thing? This seems like a lot. So it was definitely challenging. At the end, it was all worth it, but it was a lot. And then adding to this, I received a promotion at work. Great promotion.
Yeah.
Promoted to a sergeant, but with the Highway Patrol, a lot of times promotion comes a move. It's rare you get promoted
Oh,
in
okay.
your own district. So it's funny though how this stuff, makes more opportunities for you in other areas as well, and that's exactly what it did. So I got promoted to a sergeant spot in Minot, North Dakota,
Okay.
and this is kind of where the multi-engine part comes into play with the Minot Aero Center. And I I came to I had this realization like, hey, you're going to be in an apartment and you only work 10-hour shifts with the Highway Patrol. You're going to have off time. Why don't you go instruct there? Go see if they need some help, and start instructing there as well. So you're getting, I'm away from home anyway, so that nobody notices the difference whether I'm instructing in the evenings or not.
Okay.
So
Sure.
I got a job, part-time job instructing with Minot Aero Center, and great group of people, great flight school out there, and great mechanic shop. I got nothing but good things to say about Minot Aero. And they had need for a multi-engine instructor, so I got my multi-engine rating and as a flight instructor, and off we went. I was doing multi-engine instruction there. Back home, Avflight had a spot for they partner with Cirrus Company, and
Okay.
had a spot for a Cirrus flight instructor. And
Oh, nice.
so I was able to get my CSIP. They sent me down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and got my CSIP. And basically, at this point now, I'm doing multi-engine instruction in Minot and CSIP instruction in Grand Forks when I'm home. So it was really, as a flight instructor goes, I kind of hit the jackpot. It really was a great gig for me. Was working with both outfits. Eventually, I kind of came to the realization with UND on field, and the overload of the multi-engine program at UND, that there was some potential need with the multi-engine in Grand Forks at the Part 61 school, and that's exactly what we did. I kind of partnered the two schools together, and we brought the Piper Seneca over to Grand Forks for a year, and did some flight instructing out of Grand Forks as well. So
Okay. Nice. There's something you said I want to go back on. you talked a bit about you and your wife had conversations. You knew what the end goal was, but you also talk about that. I mean, this is certainly challenging, and you had those moments of doubt. So I want to touch on both of those things just a little bit as far as like, what does a conversation look like with your spouse, or for other people listening, their significant other, for, hey, I want to do this thing. What does that support look like? Or what should people expect as they try to navigate that part of things?
Absolutely. No, it's a very, very good question, because it's this is real life, and it is definitely, if you're somebody with a family, and even if you're not, you have people who are always going to doubt you, and having somebody cheerlead you is important. And my wife was that person, but the conversation did not start out great. When you're in a when you're in a stable career field, and especially something as stable as the highway patrol, it's a tough conversation. And part of it was, I put a lot of planning financially, doing the concrete stuff on the side. Essentially, that's the money that I could make from it. That's what I used it for. I used it to help pay for my flight time, help pay for that stuff. That helps, having a plan in place ahead of time. Like, okay, I know this sounds crazy. Here's why I want to do it. It's a passion of mine. I've wanted to do it since I was a kid. Here's what it'll do for our family. It's going to provide a great career, good income, travel benefits. We get to travel,
Yeah.
all of those kind of things. Here's the downsides. Being upfront and honest, because I tell you what, as I'm sure we'll get into later, the airline pilot life is not as glamorous as TikTok makes it seem. There is definitely downfalls. I'm
What?
sitting, yeah, right. I'm sitting here in reserve and in Indiana right now, away from my family, and not flying this week. So I mean, there is certainly, it's not all roses, and it's making sure your family understands that is important. So essentially it became our decision. It wasn't my decision, and I think that's important to have that buy-in before you go. This is a major change. It's a major undertaking, at least from my perspective. So if you're going to do it, you're going to have your naysayers. You work through that, but making sure you got your family on board with you is very important.
For sure. So the next part I wanted to talk about is, you mentioned that, you have moments where you're like, what am I doing? And you're facing those challenges and trying to work through those. Are there anything specifically that, like, if someone else is listening to this and going kind of in the same spot of like, why am I doing this? Or this seems like an impossible dream. Like, what am I doing? What kind of advice would you have to maybe counteract some?
It for me, it was this is something that I've wanted my entire life. And I think understanding why I wanted it because, I'm at peace in the air. I really am. It's a peaceful place for me. I enjoy all the aspects of aviation. There isn't a part of it I don't like, down to the smell of burning jet fuel. Like, I like it all. So I know that, and going back to those key things, laying those out ahead of time, and going back to those, because there's going to be times in training when things aren't going well. You got to check ride the next day. You feel, like, I just don't know if I know this stuff.
Yeah.
And what am I doing here? I shouldn't even be here. You got to be able to go back to those things like, no, I'm meant to be here. It's going to be okay. This is what I've been training for. And keeping that positive side, because it's easy to get down on yourself, and it's such a long path that even halfway through you're looking for that light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not there yet. And even coming into the airline side of it and going through the airline training, it's another process, it's another step, and it's if you don't go back to those key things of why are you doing this, and for me, like I said, it's I love aviation, and I know I do. And when it feels like you don't because things are hard, you got to remind yourself, no, you're in the right spot. This is part of the path to get there. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important to set those markers right away, because you're gonna look back on them several times throughout training.
Awesome points. So for you, I mean, we talked about you're doing instructing. You did a little bit of stuff with UND and with the two different schools. Where do things take you from there?
So at this point, I've been doing this for a while now. We're getting into that 2024, and hiring is still decent, but I'm starting to see, things slow down. You're looking at the forums online, and people are starting to talk, and it's uncomfortable. I know that in order to reach my 15-year mark, which is an important milestone for our retirement system, I got
Okay.
till I got to make it till January 1st, and things are getting tight. The hiring are slowing down. The classes are a quarter the size they were in the previous hiring classes. And my friends that I all flight instructed with are all at the airlines, and they're saying, "Hurry up, man! You need to get in here if you want to do it." So
Yeah.
this was probably one of the hardest things I had. I had a class date for one of the regionals in September, and I had to turn it down. And I had to say,
Ooh.
I need a few more months. And they said, okay, we're going to leave your CJO, your job offer, but you got to go to the back of the line. And it was like, it was kind of a blow. And this is, one thing I'll say is, if you're a flight instructor right now, um, get into every cadet program you can think of, every single one that you can. Apply to them all and get them all, because you just never know who's hiring and who's not. And by the time you come out the other side, and it's important to have, they're there for a reason. They're pipelines for the airlines to get you in there, and they work. If you take advantage of them and you're active in them, they work. And fortunately, I had a couple of them I was part of, and I remember I talked to a friend of mine who was an Endeavor, first officer. Now he's a captain, that I instructed with, and he had told me, first CJO that comes after January 1st, you better take it and run.
Right.
Or not CJO, but class date. And that's what happened. I got a phone call from PSA Airlines, and I was one of their cadets, and they said, "Hey, we got a class day for you January 14th." And I said, "All right, let's do this. Let's go." And that was my step from the Part 91 world into the 121 world. And so I
Very cool.
resigned from the Highway Patrol and my vacation and everything. It worked out all right. I did my ATP CTP over a vacation I had accumulated at the Highway Patrol as I used up my time there. And I had to work one day in January. I remember I came back from ATP CTP. I walked in, I worked, I believe it was a Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. I worked the one day, and then I had like 2 days off before I went to training for the airline. So it just in the nick of time, it all worked out.
All right. So you're off to the races now. You are with your regional airlines and going through training. What was that experience like for you? I've heard varying opinions of how this goes.
So PSA does a wonderful job. They had a kind of a bad rap back in the day, and I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know the details on that, but I've just heard through the rumor mill. Of course, there's a lot of rumor mills in aviation, but
No.
I'd heard that but it was difficult. And don't get me wrong. I don't know that's changed. It was difficult. It was difficult training. Um, and I don't know how it was post COVID, if things were different back then, but I felt it was challenging training, especially coming from a non UND program and being part of the 61 flight instructing world. I wasn't on the up and up with the more procedural side of the 121 world, and it was a learning curve for me. it comes at you. It is the, everybody talks about the proverbial fire hose, and that is exactly
Yeah.
how it goes. They're throwing as much stuff at you as they can, and you want to make sure all the important stuff sticks, and what doesn't stick, you want to be able to know where to find it. And that's how I look at airline training. That's how it was for me, anyways. But I learned early on that if you network with your class and you get to know them, and you find, you become part of this group. And man, my class really was able to do that, and we're still close to this day. We still have a chat group, help each other out, and I think that is, man, it made life so much easier because we can learn from each other's mistakes and learn from each other, different life experiences. It was really remarkable in that regard. I was fortunate to work with a really good group of people, and it's a great pilot group at PSA as well. So it's been a real rewarding experience as far as that goes. But the training started off in dock, then we went right into systems, and we had all our validations throughout there, went into what they call SIPs, which is a procedural trainer. It's
Okay.
the flat screen thing that you see, doing flows, and there's a procedural validation you have to get through. And then we have our final, what they call our KV, or our knowledge validation, which is an oral, very challenging. The examiner would make sure you knew your stuff, and fair enough. You're going into a place where you're going to be flying passengers. You better know your
Yeah.
stuff.
It's a lot of
So
trust they put in you.
it is, and so yeah, it was, got through that part, and then after you're done with there, it's off right into sims. There really isn't many breaks. I had kind of a different view of that. I thought it was a little bit more laid back. I thought there'd be more delays between the phases. There's not. I only went home once during the whole training period, and the whole footprint was about 3 months. Um,
Okay.
so January, February, and then middle of March is when I did my final sim validation, and or my LOE, and got through that. The sim was very cool. It's when you've been flying Cessnas and Cirruses and stuff, and then you get
Yeah.
into a sim, and especially that you've had all that training ahead of time to kind of get you ready. It really was cool, and it was intense in the same regard. It expected a lot out of you, and you're not there. It was fun for me, but that's not what you're there for. You're an employee for them. They expect you to be professional, prepared, studied. That they expect that you're being paid. You're a professional. So I think people that struggle maybe don't come in there with that mentality. You're not in college anymore. You're in a professional environment, and if you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, they're not going to waste time on you. And it's stressful, knowing that, like, hey, you got to perform. But it motivated me to make sure I was always ready, for what was coming at me, and at least as much as I could possibly be. So I really felt that the training went smooth. I think things went well. You get through that maneuvers validation and that LOE, and it feels so good to finally be done and finally get to go hit the line, or at least you think you're done. You're going into
Yeah.
IOE now, but you think like, all right, I've made it, and now you're going to go fly in the real world. So it was it was a good experience.
Awesome. One question I had that popped up in the middle of your explanation of this is, I know you went through a law enforcement academy, and to some degree, going through Alex Tech, there's a little bit of law enforcement academy built into that, but then you go to a trooper academy. How did that prepare you for this like really rigorous training program? Were there any correlations there for you?
Certainly was. It was kind of the same with the Highway Patrol. They, the showing up ready, I think is a big part of it. PSA sends you some of the limitations, some of the flow stuff ahead of time. Use that. I mean, that if they're giving it to you, they're giving it to you for a reason. And
Right.
having that mentality to show up ready for whatever it is, I had a very specific schedule. I'm a gym guy, like to run, like to work out, but I knew that my best time to study was, after I left there and, for an hour or so review after supper before I went to bed. So I'd get up early and go, like, having these plans in place of, when is my best time to study, using that time, taking the weekends, give yourself some time to refresh. That was another important thing they told us,
Yeah.
and was part of it. And I remember from the Highway Patrol Academy as well. Giving yourself some time to recoup is important as well. But um, man, I can't say it enough. If you don't put the time in, because they're not going to teach you everything. There's expected, that you're going to take the time to to work on some of this on your own. And if you don't do that, those are the guys that struggled, the ones that didn't. Fortunately, in my class, we were all really, really good, about taking the time. We'd all meet together in the evening, right at the end of the night, to go over stuff together, quiz each other on a few things. So, like I said, I think that's important too. Finding a group to work through it with, as well. But the Highway Patrol really did help prepare me for some of this.
I thought there might be a couple correlations.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other question I had is, I'm assuming also that within your law enforcement career, you probably did your fair share of some scenario-based training. How would you compare that to this type of training, or especially once you get into the flows and then into the simulator?
You bet. I think keeping that calmness when things aren't going right, was definitely something that carried over. One thing that I think has continued to help me was the learning to deal with people in difficult situations. You're not
Yeah.
always going to get along with everybody or agree with everybody, and that's okay. That's in every profession, every field. Um, and learning how to be a new guy. Those are all things that are important too. I think that really helped me. I remember going into law enforcement, and I was an older. That's kind of been the story of my life, as I did everything late. But I went into the Highway Patrol Academy as one of the older recruits at the time. A lot of the guys were younger and right out of college, um, and learning, to be a new guy is paramount in law enforcement. You certainly don't want to show up in the field thinking you know anything, really, because someone's gonna prove you wrong. And what it taught me
Uh-huh.
was that, what, you don't know everything. You've, and it certainly came in aviation, and I'm glad that I entered the field that way, because it opened my mind up to be able to learn a lot from guys who had a lot more time in the aircraft, captains who had been there and done that and seen it, and really gave me the opportunity to learn how to fly the jet, more safely, more efficiently, by having that line of communication open with them to get that information. And um, I think that was probably the biggest thing I learned, with law enforcement, and walking away was how to deal with people and how to be a good person, and a good learner, and that all transferred over. So I was fortunate to have that career path ahead of this.
Nice. All right. So let's talk about your company's IOE.
IOE is initial operating experience, for those who aren't familiar with it, and basically what it is now you've been through training, you've shown the FAA and the examiners that, hey, I have gotten my ATP, I am type rated in the jet, and now the company's like, okay, so let's see how that applies to you now out in the field. How well do you know this stuff? And so you get put on trips with a check airman. And the check airman is the captain in this scenario, or in the way this worked for me. And the trips I will tell you this: you leave the training world and you go out, and it's the coolest thing ever. You have great trips. Um, you're going to great locations, and you're making decent money because they're all high credit trips. And I remember I was about halfway through, and I was talking with a Czech airman. We were in cruise, and I'm like, this is great. I love this. And he goes, "This is going to be the happiest, most fun flying you're going to do for a while. So enjoy it." Because he goes, as soon as you hit reserve, it's all going to go the other way. But and he was right. But it was great. They put you in a lot of different scenarios. You fly a bunch of night flights, day flights. We got to experience some weather. I came out, in that March, April. So, we were dealing with some icing stuff, but yet we were still getting some thunderstorm stuff
sure.
down south. So I got to kind of see it all. And it was really good. It was really good training. Um, but that's a pass fail thing too. And some guys don't realize that, I mean, it's, you're still showing them, your stuff. And that really was part, that when you're flight instructing, even you get in there, you don't know everything at first, but there isn't you kind of learn some of it on your own. It doesn't work this way in the airline world. You need to show up knowing every the basics to what the company expects. You're going to learn a lot in the field as well, but having that base knowledge and being tested on it constantly is part of the 121 world, and fortunately a very good part of the 121 world. um, I that went well for me. Got through IOE, and then off to reserve life, which was a whole nother experience.
And I'm going to ask you about that, right?
I do. I felt that was probably coming.
Sure is. So, I think a lot of pilots probably start in reserve land, do they not?
They do. Most all of them do to some degree. Varying lengths depending on what airline you go to, but yeah.
So how does that work in your company then, as far as not just being on reserve, but I'd imagine that there's certain mechanisms to make sure you get an appropriate amount of pay while you're on reserve and not necessarily flying. How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, and outside of becoming an airline pilot, that's one set of knowledge, and there's a whole nother learning that takes place, and that's navigating all of the things to being an airline pilot, as far as bidding schedules, bidding bases, the reserve rules, when the company can use you, when they can't, and all of that. And it is a whole nother set of stuff you have to learn, and it's challenging because the guys who learn it right away, it works to their advantage as they're bidding things and trying to move days around and so on and so forth. The guys that don't know it end up getting what's left over, and it makes a significant impact on your quality of life. And reserve life is not typically fun, especially for me. I commuted for my reserve life. Um, and commuting for reserve is the worst possible airline life you can have. And I chose it, so I can't complain about it, but it is not a great time. So to give you a kind of a rundown, or a look at what my life is like on reserve, I live in Fargo now. I've moved down to Fargo since, because originally I started out on reserve. I would drive from Park River down to the Fargo airport, ride a 2-leg commute. So I'd go to Chicago, and then my base was Dayton. So then I would fly to Dayton, and then I would get in a car, and I had family near Indy. So I didn't have to rent somewhere. I would go drive and sit
Well,
on
that's good, at
reserve
least.
there. At least I had that. But it was another hour and some drive, because I have to be within
Okay.
2 hours of a report time. So on short call. So that was my life, and it was not great. My first day of if I had, like, let's say, a 4-day reserve stretch, well, it would actually be a 5 or a 6-day reserve stretch, because the first day was spent traveling, and then the last day, if I couldn't get home on those last flights, I would spend the next day traveling home. That's not great. It's not a great life. You're gone a lot. You're not getting paid a lot, and you get into that reserve pay, the airline pays you a minimum of 75 hours. So whatever your rate is, a PSA pays you for 75 hours. It would unlikely unless you pick up trips that you're going to fly over 75 hours. So you're going to plan that you're going to get paid that. So you're getting paid the minimum. You're not getting per diem for the most part because you're probably not getting used a lot. So it's not great. It's not a great life. It is not the TikTok life you're seeing with influencers who are traveling the country in their CRJ or ERJ and living the dream. It's not like that starting out at all. It's much less glamorous and exhausting in some regards. But the times you do get to fly are amazing. It's great. You get so excited when crew scheduling sends you a message that, hey, we need you, and you're that new anxious guy like, yeah, when can I go? I'm ready. Let's do this. So yeah, that was the kind of the start of my career, and I'll hold a line here in September, and my quality of life will change significantly, and it will allow me to pick up some extra time and get paid more, and the rules change for me as a line holder, so I can drop trips or trade trips or pick up trips and add them,
Okay.
add them on to my pairing. So it gets life gets a little better for me.
Nice. So how long did you spend on reserve then? I mean, you're just picking up a line in September. Was it March that you came out of
Yeah, March, April-ish.
Sims?
Let's say April, just to be,
Okay.
April is really when I started IOE. I was off IOE by end of April, when they got me my time in. So, so I'd say May, June, July, August, I was on reserve. Dayton's
Okay.
probably one of the more junior bases. It's a little challenging sometimes. There's not a ton of commutable trips out of here. Charlotte or some of those other places might have a little bit more commutable, especially if you're senior, you get more senior there. My eventual goal here is to, I bid Dallas, starting in November, and
Okay.
I'll hopefully hold the line there. Well, it'll be close. But if not, by December I should hold the line in Dallas, and yeah, then I'm down to a one leg commute out of Fargo. Hopefully, in most cases, life, quality of life's important, especially with family.
Yeah.
It is, and they talk about living in base. The friends I have that are on reserve that live in base, it's a completely different life for them. It really is. It's now you're sitting at home, waiting for the call, and you're getting paid to sit at home. So it's they say, I've heard multiple people say don't move for regional, but never commute for reserve. So it's this confusing. Well, what should I do? And if your family's flexible and you can move to your base while you're on reserve, great. Maybe not buy a house, but find a decent place to rent and enjoy it. If you can't, you can't, and that's where I was. I wasn't going to uproot my family for a few months, so it's one of the sacrifices you make. But yeah, all in all, truthfully looking back, it's all been a good experience.
That is fantastic.
Yes, yes, yes.
So for you, whether it be concrete or law enforcement, what are some of the big things that have, I know we talked about working with people, but what are some of the big things that have translated into skills that are useful when you fly?
So, working under stress, is an important skill, I think, as a pilot. The times that the stressful events come up, being able to keep a cool mind and revert back to your training, is an important skill. Obviously, as a pilot, that was transferable between all of them. I hit hard on that building relationships part of it, and that really has held true through my entire career. And learning how to deal with people in difficult situations is a very important skill in all aspects of life, but especially career wise. that has worked, been a positive for me in all three areas. Um, you know, the I think looking too with the some of the stuff in construction, that the technical aptitude side of stuff. You know, it's funny how some of that fits together. Doing quick math when you're trying to square up a house, and then doing quick math to determine how many nautical miles away from your destination you need to start your descent. Like those kind of things. Like it's funny how that those quick aptitude things fit together. And you're good at one in one field, you can be good at in another, as well, or able to do it. So those kind of things too, correlate. But I come back to the people, because I think not only the relationships, but being a good FO, being able to learn, being able to listen, being able to self-evaluate. Man, that was another one that was hard too, is being able to step back and like, you know what, that captain's right. That wasn't good. You need to do better.
Yeah.
And being able to self-reflect like that, was a skill I've kind of learned throughout my career too. Keeping an open mind to that, and on the flip side, keeping a positive attitude. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have flights that you look back and you're like, man, that didn't go the way I wanted it to, or man, I really, in the future, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it that way instead. And learning, from those situations is key as well. But knowing that, hey, I'm doing what I love, and now they're paying me to do what I love.
Right.
It doesn't get any better. Even with the bads, there's a lot of good. So I've been very fortunate and very lucky to be where I am at today.
I think you've covered a couple of good pieces of advice, but do you have any other like big key pieces of advice that you would offer to others that might be looking to transition careers?
The things I think that really, without hitting on the people side of it again, the positive attitude and with myself, not getting down on myself, and to keep moving forward. It's so easy to get hung up in one spot, but keep moving. Don't get yourself hung up in one area. Know what your final goal is. Keep working towards it. Keep flying. Try to get in that plane every day if you can. Um, know that it's not always a clear path, and that was something that was kind of instilled in me early, and I didn't really believe it. Because I look at them like, yeah, I'm going to be a Southwest Airlines first officer, in 3 years, like everybody else is on, and it doesn't go that way. It never goes the way you think it's going to go. The opportunities come up, and learning which opportunities to take and not take is somewhat of a self-learning process. Um, and yeah, keep moving forward, keep working at it, and it eventually comes together, and you start to see the pieces as you get towards the end of it, and it feels good. It's like when you can finally start to see a light at the end of the tunnel of like, all right, I'm and I'm not there by any means. I'm an FO at a regional airline. Like it's definitely not over for me. I have aspirations to keep moving. What the end goal looks like, I don't really know. I have ambitions to hopefully keep moving forward and get to captain and work my way up and build my time as a 121 pilot in a jet. Where it takes me from there, who knows? Who knows?
Well, I'd be excited to hear how that goes. So
Absolutely. I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute.
That's awesome.
Loving every minute of it. So
good for you. So the final catch-all question. This is where I pull a question out of my detective tool bag and go, is there anything else important you think I need to know that we haven't?
I don't. I think we covered a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think find your group, find your place. I spent time going into some of these small airports, especially Grafton. The guys would sit and have coffee, and I would go in there and chat with them, and And every now and then I'd pull in and see what the mechanics were working on, and just kept those relationships open. I got a good relationship with a lot of different aviation people in the area, and I think that's important. Having their support, having somebody to say, you know what, I know it seems bad right now, but it's going to get better. Keep
Yeah.
working. Having those people is great.
Matt, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I know that, again, this has been a long time coming. I appreciate the patience, and I'm really, really glad that this worked out because you've got a great story.
Well, hey, I appreciate you having me. We kind of had a game of cat and mouse there, and
Yeah.
my schedule and your schedule, and
Yep.
it was a lot of fun talking to you, and I really appreciate your time as well.
Well, a huge thank you to Matt for joining me on this episode of the podcast. Truth be told, when he talks about how it had taken a while for him to get onto the podcast, just for some reference for everyone, him and I first connected in December of 2023. And based on our schedules and just life and all that, it's taken this long to get him onto the podcast, but I think it was totally worth it. He was great to talk to, and I hope that you are able to take something out of this episode if aviation is a career move that you are looking towards. I think the timing of the delay actually doesn't hurt us here, because when we first started talking, he was still on that career path of working on his ratings and working on his hours. I believe at the time he was a CFI, CFII, and he was just working towards things while in Grand Forks. Well, obviously he gets his promotion with work and things continue to progress for him, but ultimately he's able to make that career move, and now he's living his dream with the airlines. So awesome to hear that. I think also in this episode, we hear once again the recurring theme of finding your people, finding that group to help encourage you throughout your journey in aviation, whether that be as a mentor, whether it be someone who instructs you, or that mechanic who's able to help him out when his plane engine goes down and he needs to get back up and doesn't let him quit. So all those relationships are super important, and I cannot stress enough how crucial it is for people to just find that group, find your people within aviation to help keep pushing you forward. As always, thank you all for your support of the podcast. If you like what I'm doing, be sure to share the podcast far and wide. If you like what I'm doing, please rate and review the podcast. I would love to read some more reviews from people on a future episode. So jump on wherever you're listening to this, leave me a rating, leave me a review, and I'll read those in future episodes. Also, if you are interested in being on a future episode, whether it be to talk about a career change or a career that you're in that people might be interested in, you can reach out to me at jim@flyingmidwest.com, and I'd be happy to have you on a future episode. Well, not sure if you can tell or not, but the voice still isn't 100%, so I'm going to wrap this one up with a short outro as well. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the AeroExploration Podcast, and we will see you next time.